So this is a grant stem from a state-funded project first for 6 years. Region of Higher Education funded the summer programs, and it was open to both genders. But we all know that women is kind of underrepresented in the STEM fields. STEM, I know probably everybody knows what that stands for: science, technology, engineering, and math. And so we took this proposal to NSF and say, every year we have to turn away 70% of young women who like to attend, but due to the budget constraints, we can only allow half of them to attend. And so they funded it, and it was for 3 years, and we have a 1-year extension. It's no cost. And so we target the trio and then at the upper uh, all kinds of program to serve the underrepresented population. So I would love to work with the K-12, K-20 at LU. And so this awards, if you just Google with that award number, then you will take you to the NSF website, and then we will show you the description and programs and so forth. If you'd like to know a little bit more about it, we also have a website. If you just Google STEM Summer Academy, it would also take you to my website as well. And we have 2 NSF grants. So for today, I just want to kind of focus on the teacher professional development, even though the STEM Career Builder has 6 type of interventions. So we have summer academies, which occurred sometimes in June, sometimes in July, depending on the schedule of all the site visits we have, and then the schedule. We partner with FBI and IBM and Apple, so it's kind of have to coordinate with a whole bunch of stakeholders to have those dates. So we do have teacher professional development PD. We pay them $1,400 for them to attend and to help. Once they learn it, we put them in the actual environment to actually learn how to practice the newly learned pedagogy skills that Lexi mentioned about. And so the development will have different components, which I will discuss in a minute. And Brett kind of helped us 1 year trying to help us with the summer academy. So he's feel free, welcome to jump in anytime he wants to share his insights. And his expertise was the augmented reality. And so the computer system that we use to help teachers learn the database a little bit, because I think we need to prepare our youngster in our nations to know a little bit emerging careers such as data science. So analytics is part of the program we pushed. And then we use the forensic as a lens. And so CODIS, which stands is the DNA database, APHIS is the fingerprint database, and we built in with code cases, so 4 of them unsolved. So to help students develop analytic skills, they have to kind of piece those together. And so the teacher has to be trained first before they can really like better prepare our students. And so we use a lot of emerging technology like artificial intelligence, machine learning, simulations, gamifications, blockchain, and so forth. And so the FBI comes and present every year, and then also will bring their FBI black truck, and they will have all kinds of tools and supplies, and kids would kind of use them and to go out and trades. And it's really fun. 1 year, the FBI was at UCO campus, and we kind of got in behind the line of a whole bunch of summer program students, high school students. And so the FBI was standing at the end of the line and we said, should I announce FBI is here? So I said, no, don't want to cause a panic here. And then 1 year, UCO kind of gave them a citation in the parking lot, and didn't have the parking decal. And then I said, do they not know the FBI, the Edmond, Oklahoma is part of your jurisdiction? So something like, sometimes you can have goofy things that happens. And so partners I already mentioned about in the industry areas, Apple, IBM, and some of the Francis Tech and Innovation Center. And so we also partner with OCAST and then AppScore as well. And so this is like a world first logic model to help. We have input, output, and then resources try to leverage existing infrastructures, kind of like Von Dang mentioned about. Sometimes you have a platform that's already in place. And so for UCO, we use Desire to Learn D2L. And then some of the partners we partner with also use that same platform. And so you can keep track of and kind of download some of the analytic and statistic data that you were needing. But we also collect information through our own design surveys to do so. And so from the output type of the research concepts for the teacher development kind of help measure, assess their career awareness, because some of the emergent careers is so new, teacher may not even aware. And so if they're not aware, the immense potentials, it's difficult for them to share that with their students. So the next piece is we focus on the teacher development. We have Transformative Learning Scholar Conference at UCO, and it's an existing program that we just kind of tag along and then have the teacher come to learn. And this is kind of it preached pedagogy, like flipping classroom strategies, active learning, inquiry. I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are like experts. And so we also have a teacher institute, and we have 2 days, and we train them and we facilitate and kind of orientation wise, and no one would know how to help their students during the Forensic Summer Academy right here. And after the institute, then they will have the ongoing support to help them. We have forensic toolkits that can download, and they can help if they want to incorporate forensic into their classroom and so forth. And so this is kind of a toolkits that come out of it. And so you can see it, we have videos, gamification, simulation, virtual reality, as part of the intellectual properties part under the category of technology. And teachers were also provided with training. They also provided with rubrics and then different type of models, ebooks, and then the written contents like the flyer. And students created one-page career infographics. That way they can kind of know what classes they need to take, and then when they go to college and so forth. So this is just a simple example of the information system that to help the high school teachers learn how things are connected relationship-wise. So the 4 cases that kind of connected by our victims, and then they will lead to a cold case, and students will look at the cold case with their teachers to brief them and so forth. And so the first year we have in-person surveys. What we have here is the Edmond, that's our city level. The kids actually go there, visit the jails and so forth. And so they kind of gain appreciation. And so the second one is the virtual reality. And then you could actually have this. So let me try this simulator. Sometimes they kind of cause a little bit slow loading wise. So you can actually have the virtual reality with the body, and I don't want to make anybody dizzy, but you could kind of go and find that body somewhere, and it's on the floor. And because we're limited with how I move my mouse, so that's it doesn't take you to that body where it lies. But my presentation, can you still see my screen?
We can, Josie. We're back on your PowerPoint.
Okay. So whatever they collect, regardless is a crime scene, in person, say, for example, that's one comeback I was going to kind of share with Dr. Danny, because really appreciate what he says here. And that was one year we have tried to on campus, and we have a crime scene that we bury bones, not fake bones we bought from Amazon, of course. And then it's on the volleyball court, but it was a tornado, and we had to wait for it to pass. And so by the time it passed, it brought a lot of water, rain wise. So it's like a pot, a model water. And so the bones, it's kind of all floating on the top. And so sometimes you don't know the weather. And so it's interesting, regardless how you plan contingency is kind of like, important. And so you can collect DNA, blood, partial fingerprints, or even footprint. And then you can kind of piece them for students to kind of gradually try to solve the case in accumulating manners. And so we also built in a storyboard to have an email and cybersecurity, someone hack into your computers. And so students, teacher would learn how to kind of guide their students to learn how to submit the digital forensics evidence and so forth. So what we have here is it's a fingerprint database, and we simulate with the AFIS adopted by the FBI, but we're not authorized to have the real data, so we simulate the database. So if you kind of look at this here, human machine wise, just take a few seconds to activate and download. Brett, do you have anything you'd like to share in terms
Yeah,
of
I'm
your?
just going to say I very vividly remember the day the tornado came through.
Yeah.
Because you never know what to expect. But
I know.
I will just say, it's a magical experience what you do with the girls in that summer camp. And I am just curious to know, like 5 years and 10 years down the line, how it influences what they decide to do.
Yeah.
Because they get real hands-on exposure to some technologies that I personally never saw until I was about 25 years old. And having the opportunity to interact with the people that they get to interact with, who, again, these are career professionals at the top of their field in various areas there.
Yes.
I've never seen anything like this opportunity. I love what it does for the students. So yeah, and it's amazing to see, again, the resources that you've been able to have developed at UCO to support this project using the internal expertise that's available there.
Thank you so much, Brad, for your kind words and your support. So if you will say, okay, I have a suspect and then I have this fingerprint, then you want to see have student actually hands-on and then said, okay, submit and generate, get different type of, and this is a part that you would kind of merge with the artificial intelligence and also the machine and human being, because I think during this pandemic, it really changed the way we teach, learn, and work. And so many, with the virus being so contagious, I think that having a robot that deliver package for Amazon is doable, or even drones. They just drop your package from the sky. So we are entering. That's one of the high priority of the NSF is to prepare our youth in our nations to be able to compete in a highly competitive global, workforce. And engineering wise, every year we lose all the people that coming here, especially with the visa restrictions, because like Apple, Google, all these innovative companies, a lot of the engineers are from different countries. And so we really need to step up and help our students to promote their interest to learn this. And so that's one of the reasons the NSF funded this project, because the innovation could kind of help students to prepare for the teacher, because you are going to interact with robots or computer aided, and it's kind of like Dr. Danny says about the weather forecast, and gamifications, and that put them in the real world simulation with the scenarios that's likely to occur, like cybersecurity. That happens during the election. It happens during the 9/11. And so analytics, kind of the data that they have anomaly. There were pilots, those hijackers that were signed up for flying airplane lessons, but none of them signed up for how to land. And if they're sifting that kind of data, it kind of point to say, this looks suspicious, activities wise. And so those are just some of the example. And this one it's for the blockchain technology, the next piece here. And with dealing with data, according to IBM, only 20% of the data are structured. Structured data meaning they are numbers, numeric, and so forth. But for hybrid data like DNA, how do you store those profiles in a regular database? You can't. You have to really go to the next level. And so this program was built with blockchain technology, so you can click on the DNA and it will transfer and it will generate blockchain code. And blockchain is not just used, if anybody keep track of the stock market, this is not the session for it, but they use blockchain technology to make it secure. So it's not traceable, it's not, it's difficult to hack into. But IBM used blockchain technology for witness protection. Because I said in a session by this person, you all seen that movie Catch Me If You Can by Leo DiCaprio, right? So that's a guy that I would listen to, and he was recruited by the FBI because he was so talented. And so blockchain has a lot of potential for other machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so forth. So what you see here is a 3D simulation detective office. And if this requires download on machine so we can interact with each other, otherwise we could just interview with the winners or suspects like Brad, for example. Just kidding, Brad. And so the kids actually on the third year, they use Sim, and you can see it when they're doing the team face-to-face in 2018, and kind of progressed to the way during COVID, we actually use Zoom and the breakout session to conduct the interviews. The next slide is kind of like team students present their presentation versus last year they presented a simulation courtroom to actually present their evidence and how they come about to help solve the crime and present the digital evidence, and by matching the DNA, fingerprints, and so forth. And so we look at the comparison of the intentional adoption for teachers. And so can you all see the 3 years comparison?
We can.
Okay, so as you can see, actually the intention to kind of adopt forensic went up each year. So that's the good news that we're doing the right thing. Intention to incorporate IS, that's a little bit lower with the STEM, but the third one to incorporate analytics, that's lower, because I think some of the focus group that we find out is they don't have that background. Without the computer science or IS or IT, it's that's all feeling overwhelmed, but they're actually using some of those in their classroom without being realized. And so those are just some of the teachers that actually implemented in their high school labs. And we also have another pictures that shows how to trace bullets and velocity and so forth. And so those are just some of the information that I would like to share, and that has my email if you'd like to contact me. So I'm just going to open the floor if you have any questions.
Josie, I think it's really interesting what you've done, what you did in 2020 to shift things into the virtual format. And I really admire some of the techniques that you used to make that happen. Is there anything out of that that you plan on keeping around, perhaps in the next year, following years, that you feel like worked well with those virtual interactions?
Yeah, I think this summer we actually have 2 summer camp. One is funded by the NSF, and we continue to do the virtual one. And then the other one is funded by the state, by the region, and that one is going to be a commuter. And so they're going to interact with each other as the 2 groups. And it's interesting, Brett, is that last year we have an FBI agent that was sharing, and he was sitting in his kitchen table. And this is a guy that's in charge of Homeland Security, Waco operations, 911, and then Oklahoma bombing. But because he was sitting there and it was such an inviting environment, and the girls were just asking very insightful questions. Do you ever feel burnout? And things like that. It's in the past we had those same, different FBI agents that will come share, and they're very, very good, very engaging. One year they had one that shares that they were trying to arrest this guy who robbed the bank, but that guy actually ended up beat up by a tailor of the bank, and he's just like, oh, this is the wrong day to rob the bank, and so he chose the wrong bank But anyway, to make it short is, but students did not ask that kind of insightful questions about in terms of, how do you prepare and how do you know that that's you call for these fields and so forth? Because, for FBI and CIA, they kind of come after you, see if you have that kind of talents and be able to retain information, repeat this, and then it will self-destruct in 3 seconds, that kind of a talent. Yeah, but anyway, did I answer your question? Some part of the thing that I will keep, definitely. So some of the technology, I think the K-20 Center probably will keep some of the things that even after post-COVID, I think some of those technology resources that are out there that could actually still be available for high school teachers and students to take advantage of. And yeah.
I never would have expected that to be an outcome, that the effective filter would be lowered that much talking to individuals like that for them. But it totally makes sense. If we're in a digitized generation of individuals that's going to be coming through our higher ed system, pretty soon here.
Yeah.
That's where they're comfortable. And again, seeing somebody like that in their home environment, I completely understand. It makes them much more personable. I mean, they are human. it helps them connect, to those individuals a little bit more. So, wow.
Yeah, because 1 year we have an ABI, he's a bomb expert. He defused 11 bombs in 11 countries, the big deal. But the student was sitting there kind of like, I'm so bored. It's like, you don't understand, how prestigious this person that we have here to present.
Right.
And so some of the student component, which is not the presentation today, I do want to mention to keep, is that high school students can work virtually. And so we have a few students that work with Oklahoma City Sustainability, and then one students work with the nanotechnology. And so one do the data mining for criminal justice and then try to do the correlation between the crimes and then before they pass the law, or people that have on death row and that kind of analytic type thing. And they all work from home. And I think it's important because we're students from 500 high schools across the Oklahoma state. And so in order for them to commute, it's not doable. And so for them to be able to work virtually, it's actually to cut down the chance of getting exposed of the COVID, and also train them to be comfortable with information communication technology, ICT. But I think we are in that arena, in that landscape anyway, because those Generation Z are growing up and they are comfortable going to class from their bedroom. They really do that with the social media, and so gamification online, things like that. So those are some of the things that we definitely would keep for our program. Excellent point.
Thanks, Josie. Any other questions or comments from the audience? And again, you sent me your presentation. Thank you very much for that. And we'll get it posted with the video when it's available. Josie, you have Alexia Benson on here, who's your research assistant. And I don't want to forget that she's on the call with us as well. Could you tell us a little bit about the role that Alexia has within the summer camps that you operate?
Yeah. Lexi is, I think, one of the first few attendees for the high school summer academy. And then she can, if she's comfortable, she should share some of her experience there, how she came about. She just graduated from OSU and then in the middle of applying for grad school. And so I put her on those type of project presentation wise to help her build her resume. But I think I have a lot of girls and boys over the years, and that kind of help their education and career. So Lexi, would you like to share real quick?
Yeah, so I attended in 2014 and 2015. Sorry, my camera's not working this morning. But the camp is very similar to how it is now. There is the mock crime scene that you're trying to solve over a week span. But also, what I found interesting about the camp is, for one, I came from a really small town that didn't offer a lot of STEM excelling resources. And also as a first generation college student. So to go down to UCO and spend a week on a college campus was something I was not familiar with. And so overall, the camp just provided a unique experience for kids to just dive in hands-on in a very sensitive nature field that you can't get a lot of hands-on research with in forensics. And so I'd always known I wanted to go in forensics, but it's very hard to get that experience elsewhere. In this camp allows you to experience it beyond than what you see on TV shows and stuff like that. But also, like I said, I got to stay on campus and actually see the campus. We did tours, met with professors, and I think that was really insightful in getting the motivation to feel like, okay, I can go to college. That's something I can do. And so like Dr. Chang said, I just graduated from Oklahoma State University, and I'm in the process of applying for master's school for a forensic program. But also, working with Dr. Chang, helping her has definitely helped with my communication and writing skills, and definitely time management, being a remote job and working from home. But it's also continued to foster my appreciation for STEM. So
thank you, Lexi, and congratulations, by the way, on your achievement.
Thank you.